upwards of $135 billion by 2021. So you can imagine it is just 135 billion is going to be spent just on smart cities. You can think about smart devices. We are talking about wearables. We are going to talk about IoT related stuff. So it is a huge spend. Now, if there is a huge spend, it means that all that has to be secured, and that's going to fall upon us. So knowing what we are talking about here is extremely important. What exactly is smart infrastructure? When we talk about critical infrastructure, we know what we are talking about, right? The underlying stuff. We might say, oh, is it industrial control systems? Are we talking about SCADA? Are we talking about securing our various groups that fall within that critical infrastructure? Are we talking about the smart grid? What exactly? When we talk about smart infrastructure, it's a very ambiguous term, because it means that anything that is considered like a device, anything that is used to support that is considered like smart infrastructure. And that is where the issues begin with. Now, when you look at this, and John, if you are monitoring the chat, just let me know the answers. What exactly is smart? Is this smartwatch? Are we talking about a medical device? Because that is what it does. It does monitoring of your health, certain parameters. It is like sending to your doctors. Are we talking about a phone and with messaging capabilities? What exactly? So it does multiple things. Smartwatch doesn't just mean a watch, because it has got different things and different apps on it, which is helping you with lead a healthy and organized life. When you're talking here, what is smart med? Now, are we talking about the smartphone? Are we talking about the app? Are we talking about a solution, which is a telemedicine solution, which is delivered through this smart device? There are a lot of questions. So when we are trying to secure something, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about security of the app? Are we going to talk about security of the solution, which is again going to deliver and deliver telemedicine services to you? Now we're talking about smart house, right? So are we talking about the house, which is smart? Are we talking about the users inside living those are smart? Are we talking about a security system that is like smart security system within the house? Is it only the security system? We're going to talk about the automation, right? We have in it automation built for smart speakers. We're talking about lights that go on and off. We are controlling heating through this. We are going to have control over maybe ovens, as well as like fridges and everything that goes within all the appliances that are supporting and you use within your house. So when we talk about a smart house or smart this or that, there is a lot of things that are going beneath it. And to understand what we are securing, it's important to understand what kind of devices we have and what kind of. So when somebody is creating a solution, right, the founder starts with usability and not security as focus. We are focused on security, but somebody who's creating an app or a device or an appliance, they are more focused on the pain that the customer is facing, and that is usability. They are not like, security is definitely has to be part of it, but that is not the focus of the founder. And that is where we start off, because we can't identify or predict where the users are going to use, because smart devices come in different form factors. And unless we know that they are going to be attached to this or tied down to that, they are so ubiquitous and that they can be used from place to place. And what provides the connectivity that is provided to that device is not under our control, or even we cannot even predict. So suppose I am a founder, I'm trying to say, okay, I'm going to provide, say, telemedicine. I really do not know where this device will be used, who is going to be using it. Will it be used in a house? Are you going to be using it in a hospital? Are you, because of the form factor? And what is the how secure, or what kind of mindset does the user have? Are they very focused on security, right? up to being paranoid, and are they like saying, okay, that they are very easy to trust, and what other smart devices or what other devices are going to be used in addition to that. So suppose you have a device which connects to your phone. Now I'm interested in the security of your phone. If you are connecting it to the open internet, that is another thing. So there are a lot of things that go into this whole securing of smart devices and the smart infrastructure that is basically supporting it. So devices are deployed in physically exposed environment. When we were talking about, like, all day long today, we were talking about devices security, we're talking about cyber security. We can, or even though it's in the cloud, it's not like as physically exposed as our smart devices. When we talk about installing a smart meter, yes, smart meter, even though it's attached to a place in outside your house, it's outside your house. When we talk about smart doorbells, we talk about smart cameras, we're talking about things which people can touch and feel. And then what happens is that because they are exposed, their internal debug interfaces can be used to gain access. There was a case with the Ring doorbell. It's very famous. People have used the Wi-Fi password, which was part of that device, to then go in and exploit the Wi-Fi system within the house. Data firmware can be exploited, because if I can just, if I can touch and feel that device, if I can, then I'm going to be able to steal it. I can like extract the data as well as firmware from it, and I can reverse engineer it. If I can do that, it means that I can inject malware and change the functionality. If you have a heart pump, or we are talking about a device which is injecting, say, maybe insulin or something, if I can get into it, if I can put in malware, I can like stop it from injecting like extra insulin into your body. I can stop it from sending the right data to your doctor, so, or whatever monitoring device that you're using for collecting that data from the device. So who are the participants? Who are the people who are working with us in this securing the smart infrastructure of devices? The user. And when we talk about the user, it is always just like the cloud. When we say we have shared responsibility for smart devices, first thing is educating the user. We have to make sure that they know that securing this is not only XYZ's job. It's not the mobile carrier that they use. It is not the device manufacturer. It is a shared responsibility. When that person or that user of the device is aware that, yes, it is a shared responsibility, I am as much responsible for securing this device as the manufacturer. And I'm not talking about physically securing a device. I'm talking about securing it because now this device is connected to the internet. There are certain risks. Once that becomes clear to a user, they can participate in a proactive way with us. Then we talk about process. When I'm talking about vendor diversity, I am not using it in the way it is currently recognized. When I say vendor diversity, I'm talking about different vendors that support this smart device. So we are talking about the vendor that is making this device. We're talking about connectivity. We are talking about the reporting, and we are talking about the cloud provider. So there is vendor diversity. Nobody owns the whole end-to-end process or piece in this security of smart infrastructure or smart devices. Security operations. When we talk about security operations, what is the cost of this device? Because that will determine how much security you will have. What kind of security operations, what kind of security practices are put into this? Then we're talking about integrated architecture. Whenever we as enterprise risk managers or cybersecurity professionals, we like to want to see the end-to-end flow. Oh, what is the end-to-end data flow? What is the integrated architecture, right? What are the zones within that? However, when you think about security of smart infrastructure, it is so different. And we are, if you sit and imagine, like, okay, so what does a smart infrastructure for an Apple Watch look like? it's very different, and it will depend from person to person where they are using it, how they are using it. Are they using it only on Wi-Fi? Are they using it with data from a telecommunications carrier? The whole thing changes, and it could change 3 times during the day because this person might be mobile. The next is, we are talking about systems. We're talking about a resilient network that supports everything. John, do you have any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Okay, thanks. Smart infrastructure may not be critical infrastructure. When we talk about smart infrastructure, we are not talking, we are talking about critical infrastructure plus plus plus. Because when we talk about an iPhone, we are talking about, okay, it's a phone, right? So connectivity and security, etc. When we are talking about a dog tag, right? I'm buying a $20 tag, which I'm going to like now put on my dog. What kind of critical infrastructure am I talking about? No, it's so smart infrastructure means your commercial infrastructure, and it could be everything that supports that device. So every device will have an infrastructure which supports it, which will be very different. Then devices are not mobile because of the form factor. Depends on what they are doing. Now, if I'm talking about something which is like an appliance in my house, it's not going to be mobile, right? But like when we are talking about the dog tag, we are talking about watches, we're talking about wearables, we are talking about drones, when we are talking about different kinds of smart meters. So devices could be mobile because we do not have them tied down to something. And when we are trying to imagine it, we have to like take the whole thing into account. Not all smart devices basically are the same. Oh, one second, I think okay. Not all devices are the same. And we've been talking about this, like when we say that all devices are not the same, what do we mean? The data that it is having. You may have like a medical device. Now a medical device is not the same thing as a dog tag. If you lose a dog tag, it falls off somewhere, how concerned are you? If you lose your Fitbit, how concerned are you? A little bit more concerned. If you lose maybe something that you are monitoring your health with, right? Maybe you've got some kind of insulin pump or something which is attached to you, and if that is lost, how concerned are you? So not all devices are same. Not all devices carry the same kind of data or information. Not all devices are critical for you. Now if you lose it, or there is some kind of an issue with a smart device, it's not going to get the same level of concern or care from the user.
Hey, Niloufer, so it sounds like that we should have actually risk ratings for all our IoT devices. And do we? Does that exist?
Hey, John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. No, that's a great question. So when we talk about devices, right? Yes, there needs to be some kind of risk rating, but we don't currently have it, right? Because again, like I said, like shared responsibility, get the user involved. Let's do a risk rating for devices. You could have like a device which has a very small form factor, but it's very expensive, right? Think about a dog tag and the Apple Watch, right? Both have almost similar form factors because one is very expensive, one is like dispensable. So and the kind of data, right, to track my dog, it's not going to be the end of the world if it falls down. So yes, risk rating based on device form factor, risk rating based on data, risk rating based on the price, because everything, right, like depends on what you're doing. Because for a $20 dog tag, how much security am I buying? Because I mean, let's face it, we'll come. So that is like, this is where what we are discussing. So security will depend upon the cost, depend upon the data, and the life of the device. Now, we have a tracker which has got a 6 months life or maybe a year max, right? Um, how much security you think the vendor is going to provide you with? And then what kind of data is stored, processed, and transmitted from it? So it's very iffy. Yes, we need risk rating, but it's not there yet. We're not there yet, even though we are probably in the 7th or 8th generation of like iterated devices. Then what we are doing today is using standards of yesterday. Now, if there are like mistakes made like years ago, we only know about it right now, and we can have like big implication in the future. Number 5, right? High level of customization. I can get that watch and customize it to fit my needs, to do what I want it to do. I can download apps on it. I can use it as a medical device, or I can just use it as something to send and receive calls or just read my messages. So there's a huge level of customization. Because of that, it is becoming, even when we are doing risk ratings, right? It's tough. It's not that easy, or it's not like a straight off thing saying, oh, XYZ, so it has a risk rating of X, because it depends on how a person is using it. Now, suppose today you have a telemetry bed in your house. Telemetry bed is like somebody who's very sick and needs their vitals to be monitored continuously. And now I'm using a smart plug, which is a device which, I can control using my phone, making sure it remains. So it has a more critical level of concern, rather than like something, maybe I'm just I have a phone, some kind of light fixture or something which is attached to that smart adapter in the house. Increased connectivity. Initially, like whenever, because now we have increased connectivity, we are not like controlling things within our Wi-Fi network. We are controlling things from outside over the like using a phone. So you have increased connectivity in the sense that you don't need to be close to something in order to control it. So that brings a whole set of controls that need to be in place. That brings a whole level of complexity into this when we talk about controlling something and putting controls in place so that we can secure that device.
So that actually, we have a question from Yolanda about smart devices with listeners. If privacy is concerned, how do you avoid these? Because even if you have do not disturb on, it's still listening. So what's your current advice on that?
Okay, so it's Yolanda, thanks so much. So this is really surprising. I had presented at our chapter meeting, and I asked everybody, what do you think, like, when Alexa, like the do not disturb, right? So what do you think? Is it listening? Is it not listening to you? And everybody said, no, obviously it's not listening if you put that. And I'm like, okay, so how do you wake it up if it's not listening? How do you say, hey Alexa, whatever it is? I'm not going to say Siri because my phone's going to jump up now. But so Yolanda, to answer your question, it is always listening. What it does is it listens for 10 seconds. If it does not hear, as soon as you make a noise, it listens, and then it discards it if it does not get that wake up word to wake it up. So that's how it is. How can I be sure if that it's not listening? I mean, disconnect it probably, and even then if it's got a battery, I don't really know what kind of data it's sending. So to answer your question, is this okay, Yolanda? You have anything follow-ups?
No, but that's good. And actually, there was a test run by NYPD where they bought a phone and just powered it on, kept it in a soundproof room, and only uttered one phrase into it. And the person who owned that iPhone, the detective, started getting emails with that phrase in it. So it's always listening. There's another question here about the firmware. The firmware for these devices always remain unupdated. Should we eventually expect notification from manufacturers or possibly a market for your friendly neighborhood penetration tester?
Now, again, it depends, right? Now, if you have a dog tag, $20 or maybe 10 even, right? Do you expect that firmware to be like OTA, like what we know in firmware over the air, like a photo update for it? But suppose I have a Tesla. Obviously, I will expect firmware over the air, right, to be in place for that. Back in the day, guys, I don't know, I'm dating myself, but when the Ford truck got hacked, anybody remembers how they sent the photo updates to them in a drive? So they sent a pen drive because there was no firmware over the air to upgrade that firmware, which was part of that connected vehicle. So to answer your question, I mean, I don't know about the market for the penetration testing or stuff, but what I'm like trying to explain is that we have there is no standardization, right? So what is the cost? If it is expensive, right, I would expect it. What is the length of it? If it's like at least 3 years and I'm paying say maybe $1,000 for it, then my expectation is going to be very different from a vendor perspective than for somebody who has just like, I mean, dog tag, or like, you know, you're tagging various things to your keys or something. So it depends on what we are talking about, but firmware updates are extremely important. And if they cannot do it, then you should know, like you should at least find out, hey, can this firmware be updated or not? And my expectation is that do not like wait for a person to come and like update all their light switches or all their fixtures in the house, or all the push that firmware. If you have connectivity, then push that firmware into the device. Any other questions?
Nope. Nope. That's it for now.
Okay. Okay. So now we are coming to the top third threat, evolving threats. When new threat comes up once a product is released, uh, I don't know how it's going to be, and like people have a lot of time on their hands, right? So now you get this device, you put it in people's hands, they will come up with some kind of, I mean, penetration testing, maybe you can call it some kind of vulnerabilities that will be discovered, maybe not exactly in your product, but your product when it pairs up with XYZ, when your product is exposed environment, when your product is maybe connected to some other vulnerable network. So depends, like when we talk about botnets, right? They were exploiting all these smart devices somehow and trying to send pings to create like a DDoS attack. So you don't know when, I mean, obviously nobody said, oh yeah, go take my device and like, you know, create it into a botnet and then go and attack other websites or something. So threats are always evolving. And whatever we do, we may do a risk rating, we may do a analysis for this device. It is a snapshot at a time. So it's not going to be like an ongoing thing. For a vendor to keep track of their devices and say, okay, this is end of life, that is something that I think that onus needs to be with the vendor. Again, depends on the vendor, depends on their level of understanding about these threats. But the threats are evolving, and there are certain unknowns, things that we don't know today, we can't protect against. Okay, so now this is example, sensor security, right? Google Maps collects data from users' phones. So if I say, hey, I'm going from here to say meet Checo at Highland Falls, so Google Maps is tracking me, how much time it takes for me to go from point A to point B. And what this person did was he put in, and you can see over here, he took like 99 phones, put it in a wheelbarrow, and then walked through. And Google said, oh, this is like here, if you can see this map over here, it is showing a red line which says, oh, there are 99 cars trying to pass, and maybe and because it's walking really slow, they predicted like a traffic jam, whereas you can see the whole lane is totally empty. What does this, like as far as our smart devices etc are concerned, what does this say? It is not only the sensor security, it is that garbage in and garbage out. So if you get bad data and you make decisions based on that, so if your sensor can be compromised, and this is not something which somebody did something like wrong, yes, it was used in a different way, right? But be aware of that. So you can only, like your whole solution, everything can be only as secure as the data that you are receiving from somewhere. So that is the number 2 threat. And the number one is customer engagement, educating the customer and making them aware and engaged for security in a proactive manner. If you are not engaging the customer, educating the customer, reaching out to the customer and saying, hey, this is not just me, it is us. If you take this device, there is like certain things that you have to do, and tell them what they are supposed to do. I have done a study which is called an eyeball study. Means like what you do is that you just present somebody with a page or something for privacy, and nobody looked at any privacy information. And probably like check, I'll share it with you. For Google, they were not looking. So you've got like where the eyeballs are focused, right? Eyeballs were not focused towards privacy. Eyeballs are not focused on a page which talks about something. Maybe there is something that you need to push in. If it's a new device, make sure that they are having a password set. It has to come right out for the box. You cannot like say, oh yeah, if you want to set it. If you don't, then that's okay or something. Force them to do it. For smart devices which might have some kind of impact, some kind of compromise. That's a dog tag. Yeah, don't set a password, who cares. But I mean, be aware that somebody could be tracking that dog tag just to see if you are out, you've taken a dog somewhere, are you inside the house, what's going on. There could be like a lot of things going on. So that brings up to our last thing: what can we do?
So
And
before we go on to that, there was a question here about what about manufacturers, or what about end users using these devices for unintended purposes, right? How do we make sure that if it's being used for an unintended purpose, it's not being used unsafely or for causing more damage than it should?
okay, the question, I think, unintended, when we talk about, say, unintended uses.
Unintended use.
Yes, unintended use is more like, suppose it's a dog tag, but I can just throw it in somebody's car and maybe track them, right? It's an unintended use. It's not meant to be tracking other people.
Perfect example, yes.
Right? So that unintended use is much more than something that a vendor can do. A vendor is providing you tracking services. Now, if you decide to go and track something like, something that you're not supposed to, what can the vendor, it's like, once you buy the device and use it for an unintended reason, and anything that you buy, right? You can buy a phone and you can set off like a bomb or something, right? So did I sell you the phone to like go and like detonate a bomb or something? No. But so that is another unintended use. Not much a vendor or this thing can do, unless they are using it for like a business logic vulnerability. Or John, can you help me with what the exact question was?
I'm sorry?
I said, what exactly was the question? Was it like a business logic vulnerability, or we are talking about?
It was towards manufacturers and software developers. So, manufacturers, you buy a hammer and people are using it to break windows, right? We're using it as a weapon, but the same thing happens with software and with IoT devices. The Fitbit, someone hacked the Fitbit, right? And could find out where our troops were stationed. So, I think, how does a manufacturer prevent that from happening, or prevent that from being an issue?
I think, again, user education. Because and suppose I buy a Fitbit, right? Hacking a Fitbit is different. That somebody is getting into that. I definitely think that the manufacturer or the vendor who's providing that device is responsible in a way that people cannot like log in. But if I don't know about your kids, but I've seen a lot of kids, like I've got nieces, nephews, children. They share each other's locations. So friends' locations. Oh, where are you? That kind of a thing, right? Now, they do not understand that this is extremely vulnerable. Like us as adults, we would only share it with our family members. But the kids, they feel that, oh yeah, it's my friend needs to know. Snapchat provides like tracking where you are.
So actually, I have a better example. We had iPads sent for all the executives, right? And the iPads obviously use a thumbprint for verification, and they had MDM, mobile device management software on it, so they can, access their systems. But then they authenticated their kids' thumbprints so the kids can play games when they are. So now you have kids who have thumbprint access to the corporate network, because it's usually touch ID enabled. So I mean that's just, again, they were doing it for one reason, and it happens to be an affair. Someone got a hold of that and could really do damage.
Correct. So user education, I think, is extremely important because, I mean, if you buy something and do something bad with that device, what is the vendor going to do, right? They took your money, they delivered you something. Now you try to like leverage it for something which is not meant for, like in your case, the hammer example, right? What can the manufacturer do? Not much. There is not much that they can do. But whatever they sell you, and then they have to control, like make sure that, like, if suppose I'm giving Fitbit or something, whatever, right, which has got tracking GPS capabilities, it's secure. Not, it is only available to the people who want it. It's, so suppose my son shares it with me, then it's only available to me. Anybody else who hacks into it, that's a problem. However, if suppose he shares it with 3 of his friends, then that's what are you going to do? The user is in charge, right? We put the user in charge of their data, their device. It's not a vulnerability. It's not, it may sound like a problem, but it actually is not, because we have provided that ability to the user to do what they want with that device. Any other questions?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, Yolanda, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I don't see her.
Oh, okay.
Is there any movement towards a universal secure IoT OS?
I have not heard about it, and maybe we should do it.
Okay.
Let's start a community project for that.
Okay.
But yes, again, like that is universal security OS. Where have you seen it? Even with cell phones.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, and
All right.
yes, so yeah, Bill is saying that safe out of the box. Correct, safe out of the box, but there's only so much. We are just like the cloud, right? We have to have make the user and say, hey, it's a shared responsibility. There is only so much that I can do. But when you start it, then you also have to shoulder a bunch of responsibility that comes by you deploying it, how you use it, where you use it, and I can only enforce so much security out of the box, because I do not want that conflict of security and usability, because I'm more pushing towards usability. I want to make it more user friendly than put in like security as hurdles. Any other questions? There's a lot of this thing going. Okay. All right, John, I don't see any questions coming in.
So you have, I think you had one more slide you were going to talk to.
No, I think that was just the end.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What can we do? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me share my screen. Okay. So what can we do? Encourage users to participate, right? They are buying it. Hey John, have you wondered, like, only software companies software, and I've seen like drug dealers, they call their customers users.
Yes, I've heard that statement many times before. Yeah.
So
That was on the Social Dilemma. That's where it was.
oh, really? Okay. So encourage users to participate, right? You're buying a device. You own a part of how secure that device is going to be. So just like sometimes people just don't know, because even for apps, right? Like back in the day when my kids were playing like this Angry Birds and killing the, I mean, that was like a game. I don't know if anybody is like knows about that game now, but back in the day that was very famous, Angry Birds. So what were they doing? As soon as you give it, yes, terms of service, yes, 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 and then just like let me start the game. So users also, when somebody, when a customer is buying your device, make sure that they don't do that. You do not present them. And I'm happy that there is a project going on where they are trying to consolidate all the um, uh, policies and trying to convert them into English, and asking the user or the somebody who's accepting that policy on what exactly they are accepting. So that is, I think, a bunch of attorneys have got together, and they have this community project that they are working on, which is extremely, I'm quite happy about that. So just like that, when we are bringing somebody together and asking them to participate in it, they need to know what risk is. So you can say, hey, when you are, and then at the same time, I'm selling you this $500 device. Do I want to scare you so that you never use it and you return it to me? I don't want to. So the manufacturer will try and like say, this is the most secure device, just please go ahead and use it, because they do not want to scare somebody. But at the same time, there is a way of explaining that, hey, uh, if you do not update this firmware, you do not do this XYZ, this device, there could be issues with it, right? So educating the users, applying patches, firmware updates timely. Now you can decide, do you want to push in firmware updates on its own and saying there's a new firmware update, like even for Apple devices, right? Like they will tell you that there is a new update available, and like go ahead and like install it on your device. Or do you want to push that firmware as part of your regular, some kind of a regular scheduled update, which requires no user interaction?
Hey, Niloufer, it's Jay.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, I'm just going to make a comment for you to think about. If you've got an Android phone that you bought from a vendor, they don't push security updates to the phone. You're in the same firmware as the day you bought it, and they don't want to push updates because after 18 months, they want you to buy a new phone. So how many people do you know who are walking around with Android phones that are 3, 4, or 5 years old that have glaring holes in it, and there's no way to patch it unless they jailbreak it, in which they open up the security even worse. So there's an example of a known problem that they're not going to fix because the driver is buy a new phone.
Okay. Jay, let me give you an example. So I mean, like, I'm not like an affiliate for Samsung or something. I don't even use Samsung phones.
I'm not talking about from the car. I'm not talking about if you buy Google's phone or Samsung's phone. I'm talking about if you buy a phone from the carrier, a Verizon or an AT&T or T-Mobile phone, a branded locked phone, there's no way to update it.
Okay. I don't know what you mean by a branded carrier lock, because there's no locking anymore. I'll give you an example. Just hear me through, Jason. So basically, this exact same, to deal with this exact same problem. Suppose today you own a Samsung phone, right? Samsung has made sure that suppose you, because they have secured the firmware at a current version level, if you go one version, like previous version, that phone is not going to use that phone will not work basically. So that is their way. So, and Samsung has got a lot of security features in their phones which deal with this exact same issue that you're talking about for Android phones. So yes, their idea is that you should buy a new phone, but at the same time, they understand that now that upgrade cycles are a little bit longer because of the price of the phones. And there are controls in place that way. Now, I mean, like if you buy, like again, if you buy $100 phone, I mean, and it's not like a manufacturer who is Samsung, or we are not talking about like people who care about security, right? Like if you buy some off-market phone, I'm there with you, but if you do that, then you know what the risks are. And if you are using it for a company or something, then that your business will definitely have a MDM on it, which is like a mobile device management. And in that case, that mobile device management will put some kind of controls around their data at least. And your device security will be probably like, part of managed by them. So if you jailbreak, you will not be able to use it. If you try to like mess with any of the settings, then that MDM software is not going to let you do it. So yes, if you do not have put a MDM software on like a business phone, if you do not buy phones which are current, if you buy like a 5-year-old phone and say, hey, I'm going to use this, what do you want like the carriers to do or the manufacturers to do? Because they have an end of life, right? So when you say like, say let's talk about your Windows, right? Just now we are dealing with Windows which is hitting end of life. They've been telling people, hey, upgrade it from January, we are not going to like support you. People are still using that old I think it's 2009 or something, Windows Server 2009. What do you want Microsoft to do? They've told you that we can help you go and like migrate to Azure. But if you decide that, no, I'm going to continue to use it, and you have hit end of life, I mean, what exactly would you expect a vendor to do for you?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just identifying that there are vendors out there. Microsoft will tell you, this is the end of life for this product, this product, this product, this product. And then there are vendors who won't say anything about their products. There are Netgear routers out there that are in small businesses that have giant holes in them, and Netgear has announced, buy a new one because we're not fixing it. So it's one of those things that people have to understand. If we're talking enterprise, it's a little different, but there's a lot of small to medium-sized businesses who are using non-enterprise equipment, but are using retail security equipment that has a lot of holes that they need to think about as well, especially a small vendor helping your company.
So I actually think of the consumer side where, if someone tells me my router is out of date and obsolete and I'm buying a new computer equipment, I'm more apt to spend $400 on a new router than if someone told me my fridge works fine, but it has a firmware issue. You need to buy a new fridge. Am I going to spend $400 for a new fridge every 3 years? Absolutely not. So I think there's a perception there between, where that firmware lives.
Look at all the smart TVs.
Yeah. Niloufer, we have about 3 minutes left. So.
Okay, I'm done. If there are no questions, I'm done. Thank you so much, John and Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. It was great interacting with everybody. I wish next year we can all meet in person and